All right, everybody, we've made it to December. It's December the 1st when I'm shooting this video here. And really on the Oscar front right now, there's not a ton that we have to go over here today. I'm just going to go over the first of the regional awards, as I like to call them. So that's when you get your Critics Circle awards, some awards that go by state, other awards that go by city. So the first one was New York Film Critics Circle. And I'll also give a little bit of an update here on our Golden Globe predictions, since we're only 10 days away from nominations being announced for that. That came, boom. I looked at it, I'm like, wait a minute. I kind of, as the calendar turned today, I'm like, wait a minute. Don't we have some stuff coming up here? Yeah, we do. And I realized, too, I'm actually going to be at the old location when the Golden Globe nominations are announced. So you'll get the old spot there, and the old Stormtrooper there will be gone for that video. But that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started here, and really we'll just try to go over as quick as we can the Critic Circle Awards here, and kind of generally for New York, of course, we'll kind of go over, okay, are these expected winners, that will carry through the season? Are these winners that we might see pop up at a couple other award shows for individual ones like LA, for example, or I don't know, DC? Will they win at a couple of those other ones? National Board Review, for example. And obviously a lot of those are still upcoming, so we'll probably recap a few of those after they've happened. But since today was the first, and we do have a little bit of time here before the Globe nominations come out and everything there, I'm going to go ahead and just cover this one and just kind of start to say, okay, is this an expected winner, or is this one that's probably going to be only here or could only be here and probably won't repeat way too much. So we'll just start at the top here. Best film went to Killers of the Flower Moon, which, I was thinking for myself here, I was like, well, it could be Oppenheimer, could be Flower Moon, Past Lives, I think will definitely have some possibilities here. Poor Things will definitely pick up, I think, one or two. As a matter of fact, I think Poor Things feels like one that could be one that, like, National Board Review goes after if they don't pick the Scorsese one, because, they picked The Irishman here a few years ago. They like Scorsese. A lot of these critics groups like this, they do like some Scorsese. So it was one of those where I'm like, okay, it's either this, or this. It kind of felt like 3, maybe 4 contenders were there for that one. And yeah, as far as its chances at Best Picture, of course it's going to be in the discussion, but it's not. I don't think this win here for Flower Moon necessarily says that's the way it's going to be for everything. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it wins a couple more critics prizes here, or gets a runner-up prize. LA, for example, they always have a runner-up, or sometimes a tie for runner-up once in a while. I would actually not be shocked at all, of course, if that gets 1 or 2 more wins. Best Director, they selected Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer. And this award for directing, by the way, sometimes is a little more indicative. Other times it's just ones they like. Like, look at the Safdie brothers won this award here for Uncut Gems a few years ago. Sean Baker won it for The Florida Project a few years ago. But in between all those, you've got, like, a few that actually have won the Oscar, like Michelle Hazanavakis, or whatever. I never did learn how to pronounce that guy's name. Dude who did The Artist. Or you got Chloe Zhao, who won. Alfonso Cuarón, who won for Roma here, not for Gravity, but for Roma. You've got Jane Campion, who won here for Power of the Dog. So they do go with some passion picks here once in a while. So I was actually not going to be shocked at all if they went with, obviously Scorsese was still in the hunt here for sure, but I wouldn't have been surprised if they went with the gal who, Celine Song, who did Past Lives, because they like that one, or Todd Haynes, who's actually won a couple of these before, Critics' Prize and stuff. He actually won here for Carol at New York's Film Critics Circle a few years ago. So, yeah, it felt like one where there could have been a passion pick here. Instead, they went with the one who's probably... Nolan, I think, is the early favorite, I think, in the directing category here. I won't say like 100% across the board at every award show, but it's hard to see him losing, like, the Globe, for example, unless there's a film there that just really, really overperforms come nomination morning, and you're like, okay, well, that one maybe does have a better shot than we thought. Critics' Choice, that feels like one place he would win. Directors Guild feels like right now, as long as, we don't see a major contender start steamrolling, feels like it should be a slam dunk, right? It feels really solid. BAFTA, him being from Britain really will help him at BAFTA, even if at that point something else like Poor Things or Flower Moon, or if Maestro or one of these other films starts to really peak and start taking over in the directing or picture categories. Even at BAFTA, I think a lot of us are going to say, well, that could be a spot where Nolan could easily come back and just nab that directing award. So they went with the more obvious one there, and that's okay. But, yeah. The Best Actor category, though, this is sometimes where they'll pick a dark horse. And if they were going to... I was, obviously I didn't do a video beforehand, so I don't have the dimes to say, yep, I had it right. Andrew Scott was going to be my pick. That's who I was going to go with for All of Us Strangers. He feels like he's in that very natural spot there in the acting category right now. He's one that could get into the Oscar race, kind of like Paul Mescal last year. He started winning a few of these critics' prizes, and slowly he kind of picked up some more steam, and then he got a nomination. Or was that 2 years ago now? I forget. But yeah, the year Paul Mescal was there for his film. Or it could have, a few people were looking at maybe Barry Keoghan or Coleman Domingo or even Zac Efron for The Iron Claw, which is a film that I think A24 is starting to get some more press on finally. I'm trying to think if there's any other names that people have been floating out there for like a kind of, winner like that. But felt like, yeah, those were the names being floated around. Instead, they go with someone who is totally off my board, and I've really not heard anyone talk about this performance or the film. I've never heard of the actor. His name is Franz Rogowski, who is in the film Passages. And I have not heard of this film. It was a Sundance film. Looks like it was maybe partially filmed in Paris. So yeah, I was like, it has something to do with France, right? But, yeah. And sometimes, yeah, again, they will go with some off-the-board picks here. Look at some of the past winners here, like, some of these, of course, get nominated, other ones do not. But you've got, like, Ethan Hawke for First Reformed, or Michael Keaton, who actually got picked for Best Actor here, not for Birdman, but for Spotlight, where he was more likely to be considered in supporting. They've gone Timothy Spall for Mr. Turner. They've gone Delroy Lindo for Da 5 Bloods. Or Robert Redford for All Is Lost. Some of these contenders, start out in the conversation and then, slowly trickle out the way Redford did or the way that Delroy Lindo did. Yeah, so this one, yeah, I really don't... I was expecting Andrew Scott to really get this one here. So I would have put money on it that it was going to be Andrew Scott here when they picked these, but no. For Best Actress, they went with Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, and Killers of the Flower Moon is one of only a couple films to get multiple awards at yesterday's showing. And Best Actress is another one sometimes in that lead category where they will not select, someone who's, really in the race to win. Like Sidney Flanigan for Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, Lupita Nyong'o for Us, even though she was kind of on the outskirts at that point. Regina Hall was a surprise winner here a few years ago for Support the Girls. You could even argue Lady Gaga a couple years ago for House of Gucci. She got a win here. That being said, sometimes you do get some that are like deep in the conversation. They end up winning or getting nominated. Like Saoirse Ronan won here twice in the past decade. Cate Blanchett won here for Blue Jasmine. Cate Blanchett also won here last year for Tar. At the time, she was big time in the race, and that was Rachel Weisz for The Deep Blue Sea. Ended up missing the nomination, but yeah, and this is definitely a choice. Having seen the film and everything, I was like, okay, that's a really, really good pick, and obviously they like the movie, so it makes sense that they picked her. I think personally for myself, having not seen the film yet, but to make my predictions start to come true, Annette Bening could have really used a boost here because Nyad is one of those films that's really starting to fade in the conversation now. A few people thought maybe Sandra Huller stood a really good shot for Anatomy of a Fall. And I think she can really, Sandra has a good shot at something like an LA Film Critics. That's a spot where she could pop up. National Board of Review might pick her, or they might pick Lily Gladstone again, since they're an organization that likes your more classical director, so Scorsese and some of them. So Lily might really benefit there. Otherwise, a few people were thinking maybe Ingenue Ellis for Origin had a good shot here, since that's a film that's kind of a little under the radar right now. Let's see, I'm trying to think if there's any other names that people were floating around. Well, some people liked either Natalie Portman or Julianne Moore to get a spot here for May-December, since, again, Todd Haynes is another director that this group has recognized before. And some are still on the Emma Stone will win a few Critics' Prizes thing. And I think she could. I could see Emma Stone, like Emma and Sandra could both get recognized there at L.A., for example. And you could, switch, one is the winner, the other one's the runner-up, and it, either one would be, not a bad choice or anything. So that's kind of where I'm thinking at here for that. For Best Supporting Actor, they did pick Charles Melton for May-December. That was one that a few people, one article I read, nailed it. They said, yep, that's going to win that, and it's going to win Screenplay. Or it's going to be in contention, at least for Screenplay, and it picked up both. So we'll get to the Screenplay one here later. Yeah, and I felt like for this, if they were going to go with Charles Melton, that's, a logical choice, here. Because, again, this is not a spot where they always pick the expected winner. They did last year with Ke Kwan winning. Cody Smith-McPhee was way out front at that point for Power of the Dog. They liked Da 5 Bloods, so Chadwick Boseman won here. Joe Pesci won here for The Irishman. Those are some of the past winners here. But yeah, they did have a good stretch. They went Jared Leto, then they went J.K. Simmons, and they went Mark Rylance, and then Mahershala Ali. 4 years in a row they picked the Oscar winner here. Willem Dafoe at one point was a solid front-runner spot there for the Florida Project before Sam Rockwell started picking up steam. Christoph Waltz has won here the year he won for Inglourious Bastards. Yeah, so they've definitely gotten some winners correct here. Now, Charles, he feels like one that people are still mentioning for Best Supporting Actor, for sure. But I feel like, again, with that one, I'm a little more convinced that, like, Julianne Moore with an open slot and Supporting Actress can get in, if it's not, like, Taraji P. Henson or something like that. And Charles, he could sneak in, if Willem Dafoe falls out, or if, God forbid, if Ryan Gosling falls out, where we'll have a lot of people upset there, then yeah, he could get in there. I'm more convinced that if anybody's going to fall out, it would probably be De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon. Just again, because I wasn't particularly wowed by that performance, but yeah, we'll kind of hold our breath on that one and see if he can make a little bit of a run for it there. For Best Supporting Actress, they went with Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. And for her, I feel like she could pick up also a few of these critics groups as well. Otherwise, I don't know if there's really a consensus pick this year for who would win that supporting actress category at these critics shows. Because, again, Julianne Moore could pick up one or two. We could even see some love for either Danielle Brooks or Taraji P. Henson for Color Purple, which has screened. All I've heard is just the buzz from, like, those insider people, the people that get invited to these screenings, and if they don't say something nice, they don't get invited back. So I don't always trust those people. These are the people that go to, like, Batman vs. Superman and say, oh, it was pretty good, and then the rest of the reviews come in and everybody's like, no, we didn't like it. So that's why I'm a little hesitant with that. And I have not I've not seen, like, a lot of people from, like, the Gold Derby stance, whatever, the ones that have I don't know if any of them have even seen it. There's just been, with these screening startings, there hasn't been really a lot of, like, buzz coming off them, like, wow, this is a huge contender, which has me a little spooked, because, especially somebody, a contender like this, if you're Warner Brothers, somebody like that, if you're holding your film this long, that means you have some confidence in it, or that it's a film that, yeah, you can tantalize us a little bit and say, yeah, we think it's an Oscar contender, and then last minute say, well, it's more like a Christmas release, just a crowd pleaser thing. You can do one or the other. You can't. You can do one and then transition to the other. Really, sometimes some of these late releases, some of the Oscar, like Promising Young Woman, I don't think was one that who did that one? Focus Features, I think, or whoever had that one. I don't know if that was necessarily one they thought, oh, director, picture, actress, screenplay. on down the line the number of nominations it got. But I don't know. It can happen. It can happen. But historically, American Graffiti was a film that Universal, I thought it was Universal. When it came out, they just thought it was a summer movie or whatever, and then it ended up being a gigantic player in the awards race, and they didn't really campaign very much. So those do happen, but yeah, and I really did. I looked at this category and I'm like, there's not really, again, any consensus pick here. So Divine, I think, really is probably going to be a go-to for a lot of these critics' prizes. I can see her winning at LA and at National Board of Review, DC, Washington DC, or some of these other ones. New York Online critics could also give it to Divine here. Yeah, and I don't know if there's really, unless you're going Jodie Foster or maybe again someone else. There could be a few picks maybe for Penelope Cruz, for Ferrari, but there's not really way too many other names being bandied about there. But this is a category here in supporting actress. This is where we do see some of these dark horses come from, and it's not always ones that carry over. Tiffany Haddish is a very famous example here. That was one where some people got excited. They're like, oh, it's Melissa McCarthy for Bridesmaids all over again, and she just never really got any more traction. You could say Catherine Hunter from a couple years ago for Tragedy of Macbeth, which ended up being, I thought, a solid performance and one that is nominatable in this category. Didn't quite make it, but last year Keke Palmer for Nope, some people got excited about for 5 minutes, and then they're like, oh wait, no. And I was late to that one. When I finally did see it, I was pretty disappointed in it. I really did not. It just didn't. I didn't dig it. It just wasn't for me. A couple other ones from recent. Sally Field did win here for Lincoln, and Jennifer Lawrence won here for American Hustle. So there's a couple that are nominated, but then you do have like Patricia Arquette for Boyhood, and Laura Dern for both Marriage Story and Little Women. Maria Bakalova for Borat. So some of these do end up getting nominated, and I think Divine looks like she's in really good shape to, of course, at least be nominated. But more on her in a few minutes, because I did finally see The Holdovers, so I do want to kind of talk a little bit about that one. And Barbie. I did see Barbie, so we'll talk about a couple movies here, too, in a few minutes. For the Screenplay Prize, again, this is another one that they usually do give to someone, or a film, rather, that does get nominated, but doesn't always win. So, last year it went to Banshees, which was nominated but didn't win. Licorice Pizza won the year before that, nominated but didn't win. 2020 was a weird year. That was Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, and again, that was one that, didn't really end up being a huge factor. And I said it before, but yeah, it's May, December was the winner here. And it was one that, with Todd Haynes' background here, he also won for writing Carol, or no, he didn't write it, sorry. His film Carol won. It was Phyllis Nagy, I think, was the credited screenwriter on that. First Reformed won here, and that later on went to be nominated. I actually predicted it to win that year, but that was a bad pick. In the screenplay category, though, I do think, The Holdovers is one that I think will get quite a few votes through some of these. Poor Things will get some votes. Killers of the Flower Moon and Oppenheimer might even get one or two critics' prizes. Barbie, I think, will be in contention for a few of these. American Fiction will be in contention. Past Lives, I think, will definitely be in contention. Maybe even Anatomy of a Fall or All the Strangers. There's this screenplay across the rest of the critics groups here. It's really going to be anybody's pick. It really could be any of these films, that get a lot of these votes. It really doesn't feel like there's a consensus here at all across these critics groups as they start announcing their winners. Okay, so I think with that, those are the major categories, of course. We'll kind of go a little quicker through some of the rest of these here. Animated film went to Boy and the Heron. I feel like that's one that, again, majority of the critics groups are going to go with that one. And the rest are probably going to go with either one of two choices. They're going to go Spider-Man, or they're going to go with this. There's a film that I did not initially give a lot of credit to in the animated feature category, and I think it will make the list, and eventually actually will set itself up to be nominated. That's The Peasants, which is it's the crew that made Loving Vincent, and this one looks like it's more like a painting style, I don't know. I've seen a couple clips and trailers and stuff, and it's like, ooh, it looks really pretty, like how they did it. It's really one that's like, ooh, if enough voters in the branch see it, boom, it's gonna get in very, very easily. But and the same way Loving Vincent, once we kind of found out what that one was about, it was like, boom, everybody started picking it up. So I feel like that's one I need to move into my predictions for animated feature. But Boy and the Heron or The Peasants, I think, will win the majority of these animated feature prizes. And again, I think the rest will go to Spider-Man. But yeah. Then we'll go with, there's a couple more we'll talk about here. Best Cinematography went to Hoyte van Hoytema for Oppenheimer. Really no great surprise there. You could go there, you could go Killers of the Flower Moon, you could go Poor Things, you could go Maestro. Really after that, it's like there are a few other, really what look like really great choices there. Some of the films I haven't seen yet, of course. But yeah, I feel like with this one, this is kind of the more obvious pick here. International film went to Anatomy of a Fall. And I feel like where it's eligible, Anatomy of a Fall is going to do pretty well here. And and then Past Lives won for Best First Film. So they did recognize Past Lives, which again, that feels like another one. Like LA critics will probably nominate it in a couple places. Some have said, even getting back to Best Actress here. I need to remember her name. I haven't said her name in a few videos here. Greta Lee. Greta Lee actually could be a kind of dark horse contender to win at LA Film Critics, and maybe one or two others. But yeah. All right, so that's kind of a recap of those. Before we get into the Globes, let me just go ahead and say my piece on... I guess we can really quickly talk about three films. The first one, I'll just get it out of the way because it's one I saw. I don't think it's going to be an Oscar contender at all, and that's The Marvels. I did end up seeing it because I've kept up with the MCU through the years here and stuff. I haven't seen all the TV stuff. Like, I'm not caught up on all those. But the films I've all seen. And while Ant-Man I thought was the weakest film up to this point in the MCU, The Marvels is better than Ant-Man. You saw where I was going there. You thought I was... Yep, I didn't take you there. No, and this one, I ended up... I really don't know how I think about it. Like, I don't know if I have a score for this one, because it's like... There's parts of it that I thought... There was actually one part in the middle, like in the second act, all of a sudden, out of nowhere... The film becomes a musical for about 10 minutes, and that I thought was damn entertaining. Like, what's her name? Is it Nia DaCosta is the director's name? That sounds right. Just for accuracy's sake, let me pull it up here. Nia DaCosta, yeah. She looks like she'd do a pretty bang-up job doing a musical. She looked like she was having fun. Just directing those sequences looked like there was fun. There was more energy to those sequences. And it was like, it just so out of nowhere. I couldn't help but kind of laugh with the film, not at the film, but with the film. Genuinely, I was laughing with the film at that point. Aside from that, there's not really like, there's really not much else to talk about. It's kind of a 95, 100-minute movie that just kind of goes and comes and goes. There doesn't always feel like there's genuine stakes. There's times where the film wants to have its cake and eat it too, and that I didn't really enjoy. There's the big musical sequence, and later on there's another famous music piece from a Broadway show that comes on, and it's it's one of those moments where I'm just shaking my head like, oh, did we really need to spend like 5 minutes on this sequence? It's so trivial. It just felt so like a waste of time to me. So I didn't particularly enjoy that sequence, but you've seen the commercials. It involves the cats that are running around. So yeah, that part I didn't like. Now the first Captain Marvel is actually one I like it. I don't like love it or anything, but it's definitely, in retrospect, I think Kevin Feige and all the people at Marvel are just kind of like, thumping themselves in the head like could have had a V8 moment, because the Captain Marvel character has just genuinely not been extremely well received by fans. Not just the quote-unquote incel guys out there who just don't like women. No. It's not just that. There's genuinely people that just didn't care for that film, that just, saw it, had hopes for it, and it just didn't land for them. It's just... And she's not a character that I think has really stuck around and been an important key figure in the rest of these Marvel films. So doing a, sequel with her... It felt like it was kind of a losing battle, and the box office numbers are definitely a result. Definitely a result of that. The proof is in the pudding. And that being said, I do feel like when the film kind of gets to those moments where it's her and the other two Marvel characters, that's why they call it the Marvels, it's not bad. It's all right. The three of them together. I can't pronounce her first name. Teyona. I sometimes mispronounce it. Teyona Paris and Iman Vellani. I think I'm pronouncing both their names right. The three of them together with Brie Larson do have some chemistry here and there, and it does feel like, okay, there's moments where it kind of comes together. But again, it's just, the story is so, kind of a little all over the place, and at times a little forced, at other times it slows down way too much. And it does kind of have a little bit of a messy feel as far as, okay, are we going more serious or are we going more fun? Is this Guardians of the Galaxy or is it Avengers Endgame? And it's like, the movie, again, that's where I'm like, it has its cake and eats it too, where it wants to be both, but it's like, it's really tough to pull it off. Not every film is Jojo Rabbit. I'll just put it that way, for another person that's dabbled in the MCU. I guess, I don't know. I still, to this day, I fight over, is this a 5 out of 10, and it's one of the very weakest of the Marvel films, and overall Marvel properties that I've seen? Or is it a 6 out of 10, and I'm like, there's just enough there to recommend it? Yeah, I feel like this is very much of its, if, this is to the first Captain Marvel what the second Thor was to the first Thor. This is very much a Thor the Dark World type film. So if you really didn't like Thor the Dark World, you probably didn't like the Marvels, or you won't like it if you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, that one's not going anywhere in the Oscar race, so we can wipe that one off. Let's talk Barbie. Let's talk Barbie, shall we? This is one, I have a younger sister, and she was dying for me to watch this movie because she saw it and she really liked it. And she was never like a huge Barbie person by any means. It's one of those films she got, maybe not drugged, but she got, the chance to see the movie earlier, and yeah, she really liked it, so she wanted to see what our reaction was. I'll tell you what, I was entertained by it. It's like a 7, 8 out of 10 movie for me, and that's another one I'm kind of still fighting with the score a little bit. And I can understand where some people maybe won't enjoy it because the film does at times really lean into political stuff. And that's sometimes the core discussion of the film. It revolves around, male versus female politics and stuff like that. And that stuff for me, I thought was, I see what Greta and Noah are doing here as writers. They're taking both extremes, and my interpretation at least, they're showing you about how both extremes are just totally silly. A male-dominated and a female-dominated society both are equally silly. Because it's a thing called we're all human beings, and we all have the same ability to be as good or as bad as anyone else. Doesn't matter our skin color, our gender, association, identity, how we identify, what our sexual preference is, whatever. However you would break a person down by any group, quota, whatever. We're all capable of doing the worst and the best things. And overall, I think that was the message Barbie had was, we can, there's a thing called commingling, called mingling, called, let's not have one, gender, if it's just male versus female, dominate the whole thing. It's okay to mix and match and have, females in high positions and males in high positions in other, one place or the other. Both are capable of being successful. And at the same time, it's also, a very kind of Princess Bride or Crocodile Dundee, very, fish out of water story. And those are always, you always get a little bit of a kick out of those. Once in a while, one of those totally flop and are no good. But this one was all right in its qualities there. But Ryan Gosling, for me, completely stole the show. And I could kind of sense it from the trailers and stuff and everything. Right away, one of the biggest, TikTok moments was sublime and stuff like that, which was funny. And his moment toward the beginning where he wants to ride the waves and stuff, that was pretty funny. I did laugh really hard at that. But yeah, he is actually realistically giving a good performance here. Like, there's actually, for his character, what he's given to do just on the script level. He's given a lot to do in this movie, and he succeeds at it. He does a good job. He's having fun. Margot Robbie and him have good chemistry together. What more could you ask for? So I genuinely hope that Ryan gets recognized a few places here and there. He is kind of the centerpiece of the film. And he helps, kind of turn the plot a little bit when we get into the middle of the film and everything and all that. and again, some of his moments when he goes like into the different version of Ken without giving way too much of the plot away. Because I did go into this fairly cold. I didn't know all the parts of it and everything. But when he goes into his other Ken mode, it really is a different thing. And it's like, I can understand where some people just won't like that part, and other people will be a little weirded out by it and everything. But yeah, I thought it was funny. Other stuff didn't work for me, like the Will Ferrell stuff. That didn't really work for me. Some of the characters do feel really caricature. Like there's a young girl in the film who's used to be into Barbies and then is not into Barbies. And for a second I was like, oh, it's going to be like a Toy Story thing where she kind of grows to appreciate the dolls again or something. She's kind of a nagging bitch at parts. She's kind of written that way, at least. And kind of, at times it's just completely just like being that stereotype of just, a tween girl who is obsessed with just saying the worst things imaginable without crossing a line, into like, racism or sexism or she just says like the most like, anti-establishment things and everything. And it's like, yeah, that felt like more of a caricature, and it didn't feel like a genuine position or anything. That was my take, at least. And at the same way, obviously they do this, a similar thing with the Ryan Gosling character with Ken once he kind of gets into some, chauvinism, and some of his stuff with that. It's like, yeah, clearly, again, that's a caricature when we get to that stage. That's, what Bobby Riggs was playing up back in the 70s with the Battle of the Sexes stuff, just to make that comparison, for example. So, yeah, so there's parts, that it's like, oh, and at times I feel like the script is maybe not as smart as it thinks it is. It's not as revolutionary as it thinks it is. It's like, again, it's a very much, because it's kind of funny. We were talking about it in this last, over Thanksgiving break. The Princess Bride was on one of the channels, and I kind of thought about it for like 10 seconds. I'm like, Barbie stole from this. And that's, obviously, I'm just saying that just as a generalization, of course. A lot of films have stolen from The Princess Bride because it's such a damn good movie. But, and, you could argue Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, kind of stole some stuff from that. There's plenty of films, that have taken from other Rob Reiner films, just for example. But yeah. I don't know. It really does feel like it's, again, a film that is. This would have been like, if this had been like a late 80s, like Working Girl era, I think this would have been a huge, as big as it is today. I think it would have been more in the, even more so in the pop culture, and even more so like a statement film. For now, it's like, yeah, it's saying things that generally most people accept, and generally, and that is, yep, there is a division, whether it's political or not, or if it's race-based or not, or, gender-based or not. It's, yeah. I don't know. I just didn't feel like it was as original as it thought it was. As it, still that being said, it's an entertaining product. It's, it's a film that I'll probably watch again at some point, but it's not one I'm immediately itching to go back to, but it's got a lot of good qualities in it. So that's it. I was entertained by it. Songs were good. The I'm Just Ken song was really good. And I picked it early on, just, by the way, in that song category, just because I'm like, you know what, there's all those people in, was it last year or 2 years ago, the, We Don't Talk About whatever the character's name was, Reno or whatever the hell his name was. I know I'm getting it wrong, but yeah. That song got, was not even, I don't think, considered for Academy stuff. So there could be a thing where it's like, okay, the branch might look at it and be like, okay, let's make sure we include the popular one this time. And they've done that before. Obviously, Let It Go was a gigantic hit, and the Oscars nominated it and stuff. And then it felt like it did get overplayed. I don't know if that's going to be the same case with like any of these songs that Warner Brothers is contending for Barbie, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm trying to think what else. I don't know. Yeah. I think 7, 8 out of 10. I'm probably leaning more towards the 7 myself because, again, there's just a few spots here and there where, yeah, genuinely I was like, yeah, this isn't working as much. The Kate McKinnon character, for example, interesting at first, but the more she played into the plot, the less I got out of her, kind of, if that makes sense. Yeah. That's kind of. I did also. The last line was funny, though. The last line was funny, and it was one of those lines where it's like you sit there and at first it's funny because it's kind of random, and then you're like, oh wait, yeah, that's what that means. And I not like a literal, not in a literal sense, but a metaphorical, like this is where Barbie has now come, kind of thing. So yeah. So I again, probably 7 out of 10, but yeah. And Margot Robbie still does a good job in the movie too. She, some of those scenes where she's kind of, again, the fish out of water sequences. Some of those, just as from an acting perspective, I think some of those can be tougher sequences than we would think. Because you can look like an oblivious, dumb person out there. But, to pull it off in a way where it's like, okay, I'm seeing new stuff, but I'm trying to also relate it to what I know. That's when I think those performances can get more interesting. And that's where they really go with that film, for sure. Okay, let's end on The Holdovers. Because I feel like this is one, I could talk about this movie for a while. Because it was an interesting experience. Because in the screening, while I was watching it, I'm like, yeah, this is really good. I'm really liking this. And, the film ends, and I'm like, yeah, I really like that one. And in not even a day later, not even 24 hours later, I thought, I kept thinking about certain sequences, certain characters, certain moments, certain lines. And I'm like, no, I love this movie. I love this movie. I don't really like it. I love it. And I think this is you got Oppenheimer here. You got Killers of the Flower Moon, like right here. Holdovers is like right here. It's like they're all three really close in my rankings for favorites of the year. This is definitely one of them. And I'm sorry that I doubted Alexander Payne, but because that trailer wasn't. I didn't really think it was a fantastic trailer, but his movie really delivers, really, really delivers. This is a phenomenal film, and I got to start with the script. The script for this movie is so damn good. I mean, really, they give you characters that you really, really like, with maybe one exception. And we'll get to that in a minute, because that was one of the things while I was watching the movie, it was kind of bugging me a little bit. And, thinking about it later, I'm like, yeah, it still kind of bugs me a little bit, but we'll see. I'll try to explain how I feel about it. But anyways, the Paul Giamatti character, for example, his character is just such an original in a few ways, but it's an original character as far as like where it's created from, but also it's one of those things where it's like, everybody seemingly has had a teacher kind of like that. For me, it was a high school chemistry teacher. He's a guy that's really hard ass on like the grading stuff and all that stuff. But his principle, what he's doing as a teacher, is definitely respectable. He's being a hard ass because that's how the real world is, and instilling that in the kids, and telling them, hey, not everything is handed to you on a platter. Sometimes you got to earn it. Very respectable, very respectable. And I remember even, again, personal story here, but yeah, even the chemistry teacher I was talking about, like one of his very first classes, he told me, he's like, look, guys, you're probably going to hate me through this whole year. And everybody did. But he's like, you'll be surprised how many people have come back to me in the years since and said, look, we're glad you taught the way you did, because it really did prepare me for college and so on and so forth. And I feel like his character, the Giamatti character, is very much like that. So everybody seemingly knows a teacher like that or has had a teacher like that. But for him, to have the characteristics he has and everything, it's just such a delicious character. And again, very much in the vein of some of these other characters, like from a Wes Anderson or something. Like I always think of the Gustav character from Grand Budapest Hotel. He's one of those characters where it's like you're loving every second he's on screen, and when it's over, when you get to the end of the film and his character's done, you're like, I want more. You're like, well, where's he going? It's like, yeah. I very much felt that way about this character as well. I thought it was really an original film, original character in that way, and and a good film, really good idea for the story and everything too. And I really did feel like the writing, the dialogue was really great. There's one line Giamatti has kind of early on, or not early, but probably 20, 30 minutes in, where he talks about life. Life is short and shitty, like a henhouse ladder. I screwed it up. It's something like that. But it's like, this is one of those, I used to call it back in the day, sparkling screenplays. Those screenplays where the dialogue just comes right off the page and instantly into your memory banks, and you can repeat it days and weeks later and stuff. This has some sparkling dialogue for sure. And there's one moment toward in the third act. It's in one of the trailers, so it's not a giveaway. But he talks about the role that history plays and how every generation seemingly thinks they create rebellion, debauchery, so on and so forth. It's something like that. Again, it's in one of the trailers, and I watched it not too long ago, so that's why I can remember most of that. That's like when I heard that line, even first time in the film, I'm like, God damn, that's deep. It's like, that's really good. So just from the screenplay level, this film is phenomenal. Just whoever the writer was on this, just a fantastic script through and through. And that's one of the biggest strengths of the film. Then I got to get to Paul Giamatti's performance. His performance as this teacher character, he has outdone himself. This is easily his best performance of everything I've seen. And I've not seen every last thing he's done. But he is incredible in this film. Absolutely incredible. In particular, there's one scene he shares with the kid, the younger student character, the Dominic Sessa character. Again, it's in the third act. If I tell you what the dialogue is about, that's a giveaway. But and this is I took an acting class in college, so it's we kind of looked at the whatever the method was, the one where it's like you're kind of feeding the actor and stuff. So what helps make that monologue from the younger actor, because it's like a single shot where you're on the actor and you slowly pull away, the younger actor, Dominic Sessa. And but you can tell, yep, Giamatti's right here. What helps Sessa is he's getting fed by Giamatti, not the lines. He's being fed the emotions of the scene, where to go with the scene. Because part of being a good actor, and when you're paired up with someone, is not just remembering the lines and performing them well and getting the right emphasis, the right emphasis on the correct syllable or whatever the hell. It's getting fed that. It's pointing the scene where it needs to go. In the moments where you need to get sadder, the person opposite you has to make you feel sad, and so on and so forth, and back and forth. That's what good acting is all about when it's two people in a scene, and all that. So like films like Malcolm and Marie, when that came out a few years ago, it's like the way that went too with the way the actors fed off each other. I dig that stuff. I really dig that stuff. And even this one sequence, I'm like, what? I was like, Dominic Sessa is going to get a lot of credit for this scene because of it's not a huge monologue by any means, but it's a monologue. You got to get it right and stuff. But it's like he's going to get a lot of credit for this. But Giamatti deserves a lot of credit for that as well. He deserves as much, if not more, credit. Because, again, it's not just, especially in a conversation scene like that, it's not just who's giving the dialogue. It's who are they sitting across from or standing, alongside or whatever. They're the ones that are telling, that are guiding them through that scene. And, again, that's not to say, that Dominic is not good in the film. It's not taking, don't take anything away from his performance because he's still really good in the movie, too. But, man, Giamatti is excellent in this. In particular, I can't give away a lot of stuff that happens in the film because most of the trailers is stuff that's in the first two acts, and that's something else I really liked about the movie is it gets to a point about roughly 2/3 of the way through, and you're like, okay, it feels like we're starting to wrap up. No, the film's starting to ramp up at that point, and it's getting into the third act where other stuff starts to happen, and then it's like, oh, and then it just keeps going, and you're like, okay, now it's good. And the ending was very, very good. And and it's not at all what I expected when we got to the end. Because again, just from the trailer and stuff, you expect kind of a schmaltzy ending where it ends on Christmas or something like that. No, this is not what you get. It's not what you get. And I can't give away what you get, but what you get is different from that. And it's really, really amazing, really good storytelling, good filmmaking, all the way around. There's, in particular, I will say, just a couple nuggets from that third act. But you get some revelations there, like the Divine Joy Randolph character. I haven't talked much about her, and unfortunately for me, I felt like maybe all the, not hype, but, some of the talk about her and her performance leading up to me seeing the film, I walked away like, yeah, she was solid in the movie. And she's a good actress. I go back to Dolomite Is My Name. She was really good in that. She was a standout in that. So when she shows up in this and has, she has the chops to play this role, I was like, I was not surprised. And maybe the fact that she is kind of, at the point now where she is, where, Gold Derby, I think, still has her number one in the odds for winning Best Supporting Actress and stuff, which I don't know how she wins personally, but, compared to some other performances I've seen in that category. But I would still say I think part of the reason why that is happening is because not enough people saw Dolomite, or not enough people have seen some of her other work where it's like, okay, they didn't see that she had this performance in her, and everything, and it's still a good role. It's a good enough role where it's understandable why she's picking up some Oscar buzz and some Oscar momentum. There's a revelation, or not a revelation, but there's a little reveal that happens with her character in the third act that I thought, really did kind of put a nice bow on her character and what she's going through and stuff. So that was nice. And then there's one scene in particular that happens actually concurrent with that monologue sequence. There's a line of dialogue that happens with a character that in that moment, the way it's scripted, the way it's shot, the way it's acted, that if you put another director other than Alexander Payne, you put another director. Sorry if I have to keep doing this. I don't have a computer plugged in right now. So the screen starts to fade after like a minute and a half or something. But you put the same scenario and everything. You put a different director directing that scene, and it becomes a comedy scene and a comic relief moment. But the way this is shot, the way that it's set up, the camera angle they get, and in particular the editing that we get in this sequence, it goes from what would have been a comedic moment to a heartbreaking, dramatic moment. And that's a good job directing. And that's why I've moved Alexander Payne. I've got him in my 5 now for Best Director. I kicked out Greta Gerwig. She's gone. And I put Alexander Payne in. Because I think he deserves to be nominated for this. He really did a great job directing this as well. Yeah. And also the editing. I put it in for editing because there's all these... to hit with the 70s style, there's a lot of good cross dissolves and a lot of good editing moments like that. So... And it's consistent through the film. It's not just something that just pops up toward the beginning. Because, there's a couple things in the beginning that make it feel like, oh, yep, it's a 70s movie, blah, blah, blah. Because they have, like, the old MPAA thing and a retro, like, I think this is this Focus Features? Or is it Universal? Whatever. They have, they have the older style, older logos or whatever, or a retro logo style and all that stuff. And that's the Other Guys and Argo and a couple of these other films have done that. American Hustle was another one. So it's like, it's nothing new, but it was, it's like, yep, that's a nice touch. Damn, yeah, this was exactly a film that I did not expect I was going to get. It really did. Payne has done some tremendous work with About Schmidt, The Descendants, Sideways, Nebraska. For me, especially Nebraska, I really, really love that film. This is another great film for him. And I did like Downsizing. Downsizing was a film I actually liked more than a lot of other people did when it came out. And since then, it's shrunk on me a little bit. You get the pun. But it hasn't held as much water for me in repeat viewings, and just thinking about the film afterwards, it just hasn't held up as well. I don't see how The Holdovers does not hold up. This is a tremendous, tremendous movie. And, it's great. It's absolutely great. It is a 10 out of 10 movie. The thing I quibbled with, the thing that I kind of struggled with when I was first watching it, and it didn't stand out to me as much when I was thinking about it later, and that is, it's a point that they make very, 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 very commonly in the film. And that is that the setting of the film is a kind of private boys' school. And a lot of these kids are just straight up dicks. They're just the most pampered, entitled little shits that you will ever see in film. And there's a couple of characters that you can just tell right away. Like, there's one character particularly they introduced early on. You're like, yeah, he's not going to have any redeeming factors at all. And he doesn't. And to the film's credit, they don't try to, win you over with something late. But even the main Dominic Sessa's character, even he at moments, there's moments with him where you're like, I don't feel like I need to have any sympathy with him. And I feel like that's intentional in several spots. And then later on, of course, yeah, there are moments where you do have to feel more sentiment for him, and you have to feel sad for him in some spots, because he has, even though he's pampered rich kid, he's gone through some stuff, and he talks about some of the stuff he's done and some of the stuff that's happened around him and everything. But ultimately, I feel like with that character, they aren't afraid to show him being pampered and being entitled and being very, very egocentric at times, and very, very much a pain in the ass at times. And he's described that way in the film too. But yeah, I really thought that they did a decent job of not forgetting that, and just pulling back enough when they needed to. And I don't know if that's an editing thing, or if that's a script thing, or if that's an Alexander Payne directing thing, or maybe a combination of all three. But I feel like they were able to do that where you could earn those more heart-tender moments in the second and third act around his character. And but at times, on the surface, it did sometimes feel a little, one-dimensional, like, he's a bratty kid kind of thing. And again, that's something I kind of struggled with a little bit. And again, thinking about it later, thinking about the strongest moments of the film for sure, very much outweighed some of the lighter moments I had where I was like, yeah, okay, enough of this kid. Let's move on to something else. Let's get something else going between these two characters. And it's really those two and the Divine Joy Randolph character that do share, like, I want to say 80% of the screen time, it feels like. It's just kind of these three characters, So, yeah. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I've talked enough about that one. It's absolutely go see The Holdovers. There's actually a really good shot that it ends up being a 5-6 nominee film. I think it's one that, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's going to win Best Picture. I'm not going to go on that one, but picture, director, actor, supporting actress, screenplay, and editing, that's 6. It could get in for supporting actor for Dominic Sessa. That would be 7. It's very minimal, but the score to the film is good. If that breaks in, that wouldn't be a massive, massive shock. I don't know. I feel like this is one that's going to go over well. And that being said, I've left it out for SAG. I had that surprise pick for Anatomy of a Fall for SAG. I'm keeping Anatomy of a Fall, by the way, for now, even though the film is, again, it's another one kind of like some other, like Naiad, for example. It's one that feels like it's lost a little bit of steam. But that being said, now that we're into critics groups and regional awards, and we've got the Golden Globes coming up and stuff, it feels like a spot where a film like Anatomy of a Fall or Naiad or some of these other ones could kind of get a good bounce back. So we'll see if they can. All right. So speaking of which, let's go into our updated, and I don't think there's way too many changes here at the Globes. And really the only major contender that switched categories as far as being classified drama versus comedy musical, the only one I think was May December, which surprisingly got moved to comedy musical, which makes no sense to me because having not seen the film yet, it looks like a straight-on drama. So I did hear a couple people describe it as something of a dark comedy, but I really did not get that sense at all from any of the promo stuff, trailers, anything that it is anything other than a straight ahead drama. So I was kind of very surprised by that. And that could have, and I don't know if that's, by the way, when I say that, I don't know if that's an official thing that the Globes have announced or if that was Netflix pushing it over there because they realize, oh, we've got almost all our contenders are in drama. So like Maestro, Naiad, Rustin, those are all drama. Oh, May December's, yeah, we need to move that. I guess, yeah, I need to clarify. I did not officially hear if that was a Globes thing or if that was a Netflix thing. So that could get moved back into drama if that was a Netflix thing and the Globes need to reclassify it. So we'll see. But no, as far as who's going to get in, my predictions, again, they have bumped it up. It's now 6 nominees, a solid 6. I wish Critics' Choice would do this shit too because they need to pick a side here. They can't just nominate 8 in one category and 5 in another. That's bullshit. That's why I don't predict them anymore early on. Because it's like I could predict up to 8 and say, okay, it could be this, this, and this too, maybe. Or a combination. It could be 7. I don't know. Who knows what the fuck they're going to pick. And it's like, I hate when shows do that. Just have a solid number. Stick with it. Not a problem. Come on. Anyway, so for the Globes. The 6 films I have in for picture drama. We'll start there. Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Past Lives, Anatomy of a Fall, and The Zone of Interest. I don't know if these are necessarily the consensus 6, because Napoleon surprisingly did a little well at the box office. Ridley Scott usually does okay at the Globes. Remember, he got a few nominations for The Martian. All the Money in the World kind of surprised us a few years ago here, about 5-6 years ago, with a few nominations there. You can go back to Gladiator and some of those films. Black Hawk Down, I remember those doing pretty well at the Globes here. So Napoleon might surprise us and get maybe, could get into picture drama now that there's 6 slots. Joaquin is looking a little better for best actor drama, and maybe Ridley Scott breaks into the directing category. We'll see. But that's just based on box office, of course. I'm not sure if there's any Globe voters out there that are just screaming about the film because the critics were pretty mild on it. It was kind of like a 60. What it ended up being 65% on Rotten Tomatoes, something like that. So kind of middle of the road. Yeah. So otherwise, Saltburn feels like one that Amazon has, and it's like some people like it, some people don't like the ending. I've heard, but yeah, All of Us Strangers, as far as a picture nomination, feels a little more distant. That feels like one, again, Andrew Scott, I think, is where they're going to, and possibly adapted screenplays. That's where I think it's Netflix too, isn't it? Oh no, this is Searchlight. Yep. that's where Searchlight's going to push in more of their chips, is Andrew Scott and the screenplay. Really, otherwise, Ferrari is the only outside pick here I have that could sneak in for Best Picture Drama. For Best Motion Picture Comedy Musical, Poor Things and Barbie feel like the two that are going to duke it out in the end. The Holdovers I have as a strong third, Color Purple in fourth, American Fiction in fifth, and Wonka in sixth. Air, May, December, now that that's been classified here. And then I've heard a couple people still voting for Asteroid City here as a possibility in the comedy musical category. I don't know. I mean, Air feels like it was a while ago, and most of the buzz, if not all the buzz, is on either the script or Viola Davis getting in, not necessarily for Best Picture, which doesn't always, mean the same thing for Globes versus Oscars, but yeah. And plus, Wonka's another one, by the way, that has been screened and stuff. It's had its premiere and everything, and I feel like a lot of the early buzz that's very positive on the film, that's coming from those insider sources, the online contributors and the Twitter people, the ones that, again, the publicists invite them to the show just so they can say nice things about it, and they won't say as bad things about it because they know, again, if they say something significantly bad about the film, they're not getting invited to another press screening. That's how that job works. So, again, that's why I don't always give as much credence to those, especially after the last few years here. For the directing category, again, I feel like I have the consensus picks here, but there's definitely some outside contenders to look out for. You got Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Greta Gerwig for Barbie, and Alexander Payne for The Holdovers. Justine Triet, I'm still holding on to her at the Oscars for Best Director, but I'm feeling a little pressure to move off her and pick someone else like Bradley Cooper. Potentially I could go with Greta Gerwig again. Maybe Jonathan Glazer for Zone of Interest if that takes up that slot, but I don't know. I'm still not 100% sure about how that one's going to go over. Even Cord Jefferson, I would say, for American Fiction is one to keep an eye out if that one really comes through strong here after it starts getting released to the general public here in the next couple weeks. Let's go to the acting races now. Let's go with Best Actor Drama. I'm still keeping Bradley Cooper out front here for Maestro, then Leonardo DiCaprio for Flower Moon, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Joaquin Phoenix for Napoleon, and Andrew Scott for All of Us Strangers are my six. Still Adam Driver to consider for Ferrari, Barry Keoghan for Saltburn could sneak in, Zac Efron maybe for The Iron Claw. It kind of feels like one of those good time Robert Pattinson possibilities. And I remember picking him that year for the Globes, and he didn't make it, so we'll see. I think that's pretty much it for that one. On the actress drama side, I'm still sticking with this Annette Bening narrative, but again, it really needs to start taking off soon. Otherwise, I think she could miss a nomination altogether. Lily Gladstone is my second place pick here, and then Carey Mulligan for Maestro. Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall in fourth. Greta Lee for Past Lives in fifth. And Kaylee Spaney is my sixth place pick here for Priscilla. But that's really because after that, you've got Ingenue Ellis for Origin, and you've got maybe Jessica Chastain for Memory, because that one got picked up kind of later and could get a couple nods, but boy, it's kind of a dead zone after that, and it's going to be some really outside contenders there. On the actor side for comedy musical actor, Jeffrey Wright out front for American Fiction, then Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Matt Damon for Air, Timothée Chalamet for Wonka, Michael Fassbender for Next Goal Wins, and Nicolas Cage for Dream Scenario are my six. And boy, I could, especially after having seen the film and stuff too, I could move Paul Giamatti to first. I think he could win this category, but we'll see. There's a couple more that are up for consideration here. I did have Jamie Foxx in there for The Burial for a little while. Then I put Nick Cage in just because he's Nick Cage, and it's an A24, and they might go for it. Gael Garcia Bernal does have Cassandro, which is a film. I'm not as familiar with that one, but it's he's been nominated. What was it? A Critics' Choice or something here not too long ago, something like that. So he could be one that some of the voters know and stuff, so we'll see. But again, after that, it starts to kind of thin out a little bit. Some people are still picking Paul Dano for Dumb Money, but that one really did not make much of an impact at the box office. And then critics are still like, yeah, it's good, but yeah, didn't leave as much of an impact there. By the way, one other thing, though. There has been some rumors flying around that just at the Globes here, there's a little bit of a thing here where Warner Brothers is saying, well, we're thinking Ryan Gosling maybe should be considered here in Best Actor Comedy Musical, and then we'll put him supporting everywhere else. But I've heard a couple people say that, but since then I've heard nothing. It's been like, no, I don't think Warner Brothers wants any category confusion for him. Barbie, it's a movie that I think Warner Brothers is very confident it's going to get picture, and it's probably going to get one of the two screenplays, whichever one it ends up in. Again, I'm going to say adapted eventually, but for now it's an original. And we're still kind of waiting for the official hand down from the Academy on where that one's going to end up. But Margot Robbie's, kind of on thin ice there in the Best Actress category. She might just miss. Greta Gerwig feels like one that could miss in Best Director. Some of the tech categories are more solid than others. The design categories, for example, look really solid, but maybe not so much for the like cinematography, for example, or film editing, for example. That one feels like it could make it, but it could miss. Kind of one of those scenarios. So there's been some kind of crosstalk there that supposedly Warner Brothers was considering or is considering Gosling in the lead category here, at least for the Globes. But again, I feel like that could cause some category confusion. And he feels pretty solid right now for supporting actor, aside from some naysayers that are just like, I don't think it's going to happen, which is fine. You can have that opinion, and there's stuff to back it up. But I feel like he's got the better chance between him and Margot of getting an acting bid. I think he has the stronger chance right now. Let's see. So speaking of which, in the Best Actress Comedy Musical category, Emma Stone I do have out front here for Poor Things. But you could really see Fantasia Barrino really making a strong case here for Color Purple. She could easily win here. Margot Robbie could also win here for Barbie. She hasn't won a Globe yet. Emma Stone has. Julia Louis-Dreyfus for You Hurt My Feelings feels like one that's going to get in. Abby Ryder Foster for Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And I'm still sticking with Jennifer Lawrence for No Hard Feelings, even though now that Natalie Portman is over here for Best Lead Actress in Comedy Musical for May-December, maybe she gets in? I don't know. I remember a few years ago here, Vox Lux she had out, and that was one that very late they said, oh, wait, because we were expecting it in the comedy musical category. They said late, very, very late, they said, nope, she's drama. And sometimes when they do those when they announce those switches so late, that means, they're there. They got nominated. And in that case, she did not make it. So, yeah. And I forget, what was the other example I had where they switched it late and it ended up being nominated? It wasn't The Martian. Oh, boy, I'm trying to think. And I don't think it would be like Three Billboards, because Three Billboards, they moved over kind of early on into drama. But by that point, it was starting to take off a little bit in the picture race, so we were like, you know what, it might be a winner there. Or, not a winner, sorry, but a nominee there in the drama race. So it wasn't that. Gosh, I can't remember what it was. It was one of those other, I think it was maybe more of an acting race or something. But yeah, it might come to me a couple days from now, but we'll see. There's still a few people like Halle Bailey's chance for Little Mermaid here, but I don't know. Eve Hewson, a few people are still clamoring around for Flora and Son, but I feel like some of the buzz has moved off of that. So yeah, that's probably about it for that. For supporting actor, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things, Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon, Willem Dafoe for Poor Things, and Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction are my six. Definitely look out for Charles Melton if May-December takes off, and it could get more nominations here at the Globes than it does elsewhere. Remember, Carol was the most nominated film, or tied. I think it had it by itself in 2015 for most nominations. Yeah, Todd Haynes is one that sometimes Globes will go for. Dominic Sessa for Holdovers is a possibility. Paul Mescal for All of Us Strangers, maybe. I won't even totally throw out John Magaro yet for Past Lives. Or Coleman Domingo for Color Purple just yet. Supporting actress is over here. Sorry, I've got it lined up on it's the Gold Derby one, so they kind of switch them once in a while. I'm still sticking with the Emily Blunt thing for now for early frontrunner for Oppenheimer. Then Danielle Brooks for Color Purple. Jodie Foster for Naiad, Julianne Moore for May December, Penelope Cruz for Ferrari. I've got Divine Joy Randolph all the way down in 6th. I don't know why. I guess I haven't moved these in a while. She should probably have closer to 2nd or 3rd just because of her status right now. So I'm leaving out Taraji P. Henson even in a 6 nominee race here, but she could get in pretty easily. Now, I talked for a couple of videos ago about Vanessa Kirby for Napoleon. Now that the film's out, some of that early buzz I was hearing about, it's all, she's going to steal the show. Yeah, there's still a lot of critics that like her performance, but I think it feels more like Joaquin has more of the general bid of acting praise for the film. Now I've seen it, America Ferrera was a name I'd seen a couple other places for Barbie. She's got a decent little monologue moment in the film, but I don't know if that's enough to get her a nomination. And plus, if it gets, I shouldn't say if, when it gets in for SAG Ensemble, I believe she would be included in that, so that's not a problem there. Viola Davis for Air, totally, she's not totally out of it yet either, so let's, she's probably one of the later ones there. And we'll just wrap up on the screenplay category here. Oppenheimer, just a placeholder for the first one, then Poor Things, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, American Fiction are my 6. Definitely don't. Past Lives is one I'm considering there. Anatomy of a Fall could get in there. Maestro could get in there. May December could get in there. Air still has some possibility there. And All of Us Strangers. So, yeah, there's a few other possibilities here in the screenplay as well. Yeah, but I'll try and get some final predictions out maybe next Wednesday. I'm busy Thursday, Friday next week, and Saturday, so I really won't have. I'll have very limited window to get some final predictions together for the Globes. Also, I'll take a shot at the animated feature, international. The wrong I word came up. International category, song and score. I'll try to take some stab at those as well. Globes are always a little weird with those, a little finicky, because they'll pick ones that are not eligible in other spots in certain cases and stuff. So we'll take a shot at those next time as well. So we'll try to get that. I'll try to get it done on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. So that'd be December 5th, 6th. We'll try to aim for that, and we'll see you then, and we'll. We'll see. I don't have any. I don't think I have any other screenings coming up for any films, so we'll see. I'm trying to think. What other contenders for picture have I not seen that are out? Some of the Netflix stuff. I haven't seen any of the Netflix stuff yet, so maybe I'll get around to that this weekend or something. But yep, that's all I got for now. So we'll see you with some final Golden Globe predictions next time.